All right, another training week in the books. This is the start of a second block for the second cycle, and it starts off with 7 sets of 3 for deadlift, 424 pounds here. I talked a little bit about this last week, how I like to use some of this higher set, lower rep work with lower percentages for a couple of reasons. Number one, it really lets me dial in form because, again, the percentages are light and I only have a couple of reps to worry about. It also helps me mentally being able to move the weight fast, and physically it also helps because it's like an active recovery. So again, once per week, one of the main lifts for me is going to be this higher set, lower rep range. I should also throw in, though, I'm also doing some higher rep work as an accessory movement. So in this case, squats on that day, safety bar squats here for sets of 10. And even though these look fairly easy, I am dying by the last set of 10, both in my legs and cardiovascularly. So those are really helping pay off. And some of those days where I have heavier deadlifts, obviously those aren't going to move as fast as they did on my lighter deadlift days. On my second day, my bench day, one of the things I'm focused on this training cycle is not really worrying about my arch so much. So I'm just going to go with my natural arch and just try to get as tight as possible in that position, because what I found trying to go the opposite way was building as big of arch as possible. I wasn't really able to get tight, and I wasn't able to get my feet in a good position where I could actually feel like I was using my legs whatsoever. So I'm going to work on that. One of the things I'm also going to show you for this particular day is some of the accessory work. So after those main sets of bench, I moved on to some spoto presses, which should look almost identical in terms of range of motion because I'm trying to only use like a 1 or 2 inch pause off the chest. As part of this, though, I'm also using a percentage that's very close to my main bench work. So this is a great way for me to get in some extra volume with a little bit of variance in the movement itself. From there, I'm actually going to show you some tricep work, which I don't think I've shown much of, especially considering I'm using an easy curl bar. I just haven't really felt like using this because it's more annoying to set up than some of the other things that I typically do for triceps. But as part of this, I need to do a review on this barbell, so I figured I should get some B-roll clips. So Skull Crushers is here. For a lot of my assistance movements where I'm using this bench outside of the rack, I typically like to put my feet up and not use them to brace on the floor. I just find personally that it feels a little bit better, or it makes the movement a little bit harder than if I could use my feet some. From there, also did some pendlay rows. I'm trying to have a pulling movement on every single day. For pendlay rows, it's a little bit tough because for me and my height and my back angle, I don't want to get too rounded over. There's some slight rounding here, but I also don't want to get in the habit of getting my chest up too high on these. I'm really trying to imagine opening my hips and letting myself kind of sink in, and doing sets of 12s on these really pays off because my back is definitely feeling it after. And it's one of those things too where I want to be adding weight every single time. Now, speaking of having to do a review, I decided to also do some bicep curls for the first time in probably a year or so. And just because, again, I need some B-roll clips for this because ain't nobody got time to train biceps. Now, moving on to day 3, which was a squat day. This was my strength-based day. So my first working set should be an RPE-based set. So I give myself the opportunity to push the number some, since this program is more of a sub-max program. But as part of that, the reason I'm showing this is because I didn't really feel too good this day. So what I did is I decided to take one of my back off sets first to kind of gauge where I was to see how much I was going to be able to jump, if at all. And this first set felt extremely heavy, probably right around the RPE that was listed for my top set. So what I did, instead of doing 1 top set and then 4 back off sets, I basically ended up doing 5 back off sets in a sense, just because my strength wasn't feeling it that day. And that's where this RPE system can really come into play, because if I really tried to push the numbers here, I probably wouldn't have been able to get the required reps, and I would have had to drop the weight anyways. So that's that. And I'm also showing you a couple of different angles and a couple different sets. So I'm showing you 3 out of 5. And because each one of these I recorded because I was trying different things. So that second one, I was trying to focus more on being more explosive out of the hole because a lot of my squats tend to look more like pause variations. And then I'm showing you my very last set just to show you how tough it was by set number 5. But again, live to lift another day. From there, moved on to the last bench day, and these were sets of 120, 4 sets of 5 with 265 pounds, and these felt really good, and bench has been feeling good. And again, I think I'm not overthinking it too much, or at least I hope I'm not, but really feeling good on bench on these particular days. Now I say that, and this week coming up is actually my RPE-based day for my bench work, so we'll see actually if the proof is in the pudding, if you will. But I'm hoping just to extend what I did from last training cycle. And that's what I'm really aiming for in a lot of these days. As long as the weights are moving up from what I did last training cycle, that'll be good. So just for comparison's sake, those squat days, even though it was tough, Last training cycle, I used about 30 pounds less for those sets of 3. So being able to gain 30 pounds for 5 sets of 3 is pretty good in the span of probably about 7 weeks or so. I also wanted to show you I am doing some dumbbell work, again, feet up as I mentioned before, but nothing too fancy here, but I wanted to throw in some accessory movements because you guys ask. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next video.